Sup, chooms, how y'all living? Hope everything is Nova and you're all having a preem week. So recently, I was made aware by my fellow hair loss switchers of an anti-finasteride hit piece that was just published by the BBC. The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation, which is funded by the UK citizens through their taxes. Even though the BBC has in the past had a good reputation for publishing reliable and accurate news stories, in recent years it has really gone downhill, and this particular article is absolute gutter trash, or as the British would say, it's a barrel of bullocks. It is so biased that it reads like a forum post from the Alopecia health forums, so much so that I was half expecting them to talk about how finasteride caused a numb anus. For a media company with an otherwise sterling reputation, this is a downright embarrassment, and the BBC has really debased themselves for allowing this absolute rubbish to be published. In reality, the United Kingdom is the nation of finasteride. That's why their Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has the best hairline of any world leader. Also, last year, a bunch of anti-finasteride trolls tried to get the UK to ban finasteride, but the UK told them to rightly bugger off. So if the BBC keeps publishing trash like this, then I think UK citizens should consider making Nigel Farage their Prime Minister, since he's promised to defund the BBC. If the BBC keeps taking swings at finasteride like this, then they'll definitely deserve it. But anyways, this article is about this British guy you see right here named Kyle. Kyle took finasteride for 6 weeks, but then he quit it because he says he developed problems with his sexual, mental, and physical health that have supposedly persisted since he stopped taking the medication. You could tell he spent way too much time doom scrolling on anti-finasteride websites and other social media platforms because he uses the same kind of melodramatic and hyperbolic language that they use. I mean, just look at this for example. Life just feels dry. It's like castrated my emotions. He even says he experienced suicidal thoughts on the drug, which is preposterous because it's not taking finasteride and going bald that actually makes people feel suicidal. I made a video that I'll link below that shows that hair loss itself dramatically lowers the quality of life and can cause depression and even suicidal thoughts. There are many studies that show that having hair loss from any cause can decrease the quality of life. Hair loss also increases the risk of psychiatric comorbidities, including an increased risk of depression and even suicide. The conclusion of all these studies are the same. Going bald reduces the quality of someone's life and increases the risk of suicide. So I'm sure this Kyle kid thinks he's being all heroic and noble by letting the BBC document his apparent struggles with finasteride, but all he's doing here is scaring people away from the drug and thus making their lives worse. But who knows? Maybe that's his intention here. After all, misery loves company. So maybe Kyle thinks that if he could scare other people away from finasteride, then they'll go bald just like he is, and he'll take some solace in the fact that there are now more slapheads in the world who can join him in his failure. It's always easier to cope when you have others who can cope with you. So, before this guy took finasteride, he decided to do his own research, and then he came to the conclusion that it would be best to buy finasteride from an online telehealth pharmacy. The guy never saw a doctor, and a lot of the article criticizes just how easy it is to buy drugs online without ever seeing a doctor. Now, I have to be honest, I actually kind of agree with this, but Kyle is not a child. He's a grown adult who is capable of giving informed medical consent, so any adverse effect he experienced from finasteride is nobody's fault but his own. He knew the risk going in, and he took them anyways. I know it sucks that some people get side effects from finasteride, but just because this guy can't take finasteride doesn't give him the right to spread lies and misinformation about the drug online and try to convince as many people as possible not to take it. Finasteride side effects are all very well documented and they are extremely rare. And even though he didn't see a doctor, these telehealth companies still inform their patients about the drug's risk. So, despite being informed, he made the decision to take it anyways. If finasteride isn't for him, then oh well, but he should get on with his life rather than trying to ruin it for everybody else like a sore loser. But I do agree that Kyle would definitely have benefited from seeing a real doctor before starting finasteride instead of doing his own research like a crunchy mom. Apart from my channel and a few other sources, 99% of all the information online about finasteride is negative and implies there is a high risk of getting serious side effects that persist after stopping the drug. That's because people who have a good experience with the drug, which of course is the vast majority of finasteride users, will not report about this their experiences online, and this creates a false impression that finasteride's adverse effects are more common than they really are. But the fact is that this misinformation about finasteride just isn't true. Finasteride side effects are rare, and persistent side effects, as well as neurological side effects, are not real. I have made many videos explaining all of this. So Kyle took finasteride for a month and a half and says he lost more hair as well as muscle tone amongst other side effects. So again, this is a result of him not seeing a doctor. If he had, then he would have known that it takes a minimum of 3 months to see any effect from finasteride, and oftentimes it takes 6 months or even over a year before any kind of improvement is seen beyond baseline. What most likely happened here is he had a treatment shed from starting the drug, which is what happens to everybody, I should remind you, and he then jumped to the conclusion that the drug wasn't working for him. So not only is this Kyle fellow spreading misinformation about finasteride's safety with the help of the BBC, he's also gaslighting the drug's efficacy by spreading doubt about its effectiveness. Nothing could be further from the truth. Finasteride is an extremely effective drug that will stop and reverse hair loss in the vast majority of men, and it is also a very well tolerated drug. This is all well documented and well designed studies that include thousands of subjects and proper controls, something that we never see in any anti-finasteride research, I should remind you. He also claims that he lost muscle mass on finasteride. This is complete bullshit, because first of all, let's take a look at this guy. This is the look of a man who has never worked out a day in his life. You could tell just how timid he looks just by looking at his eyes. No way would this guy ever have the courage to get underneath a barbell and lift it. Now, you may be thinking I'm being harsh on this kid. Maybe you're thinking that he worked out in the past, but then he stopped because finasteride made him depressed. But no, this kid has never seriously trained a day in his life. When people work out for a while, but then they stop, they'll definitely lose muscle mass, of course, but training does cause some permanent morphological changes to human skeletal muscle that persist even after you stop training. That's why we hear about body types like the dad bod, for instance, which is a body type that describes someone who used to work out and still has some muscle, but they definitely let themselves go. But even though they've gained a lot of body fat, they still have some muscle mass. But this guy, he has the body of someone who has never worked out. He's just skinny fat, and it's pathetic that he thinks people would be stupid enough to think that finasteride caused him muscle loss. He never had any muscle to lose to begin with. That's why even when he's indoors, he has to wear a thick hoodie to cover his puny physique. Now, maybe you think I'm being mean to the kid, but here's what this bellend said about me on the Moral Medicine channel 3 months ago. And Kevin, man, if you see this, you're an awful human. I don't wish this on you because I don't wish this on anyone. But I hope one day you get shown for what you are and all the lies you have ruined claiming this drug is safe and PFS isn't real. I haven't ruined anybody's life. Every single time I upload a video, without exception, I have people who thank me for making their lives better since I encourage them to take finasteride, and the only regret I hear anyone talk about on this channel is that they didn't start the drug sooner. I am a hair loss witcher, and what I do here is a force for good. I haven't hurt anyone. I have only helped people. What you and other finasteride haters are doing, on the other hand, is flat out emotional manipulation. You and the anti-finasteride community are trying to silence debate about the drug by portraying people who are skeptical of post-finasteride syndrome as awful, callous monsters who are ruining people's lives. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, not even you. I'm trying to help you and others snap out of your delusions so you can seek proper medical help for whatever the hell it is that is causing all of your problems and stop scapegoating finasteride for all of your personal failings. The only reason why you and others feel your life has been ruined by finasteride is because you refuse to accept even the remote possibility that your problems could be due to other factors. And the fact that you're spreading these dangerous lies about finasteride to other people puts their mental health at risk. There are a lot of people in the world who suffer from depression and sexual health problems who may have taken finasteride at one point in their life, and you and others are telling them that their condition is permanent. If anyone is driving anyone to suicide here, it is the PFS Foundation and other finasteride-hating cults, since they're telling people that there is no hope for them, and I'm not going to let you or others get away with that without a fight. Your problems are not due to finasteride, and you claiming it caused muscle loss is either a delusion or a lie. Finasteride is a drug that is widely used by Hollywood celebrities and professional athletes and has been for decades. If it actually caused muscle loss, we definitely know by now, and thanks to the power of science, we know it has no adverse effects on muscle mass or strength whatsoever. There are actual well-designed studies showing that 5-AR inhibiting drugs like finasteride have no effect on muscle mass or the effects of strength training. Conversion of testosterone into DHT is not necessary for its anabolic effects on muscle. DHT has no effect on skeletal muscle tissue because it is broken down by the enzyme called 3-alpha-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase into an inactive metabolite. It is testosterone that builds muscle, not DHT, and finasteride actually raises testosterone, so if anything, finasteride would help preserve muscle mass, not degrade it. In any case, Kyle quit the drug prematurely, and at that point, what probably happened is he got depressed since he was still losing his hair, and he then found out the hard way that the one therapy that could reverse his hair loss wasn't something that he could use. I mean, just think about that for a moment. I know a lot of you guys who watch my channel take finasteride or dutasteride, so imagine how depressing it would be for you if you found out the next day you could never take the drug again and you had to go bald no matter what. That would be far more depressing than any drug side effect for sure, and it's likely that those circumstances are what trigger depression in people who stop taking finasteride. But then, having consumed propaganda that any side effect he actually may have had were persistent, there's no wonder that he continues to be depressed. Now obviously, I don't know who this guy is, but it's especially interesting that there is no doctor quoted in this article saying that finasteride was actually causing his current problems. No medical professional actually is quoted in the article confirming any of the symptoms that Kyle claims to have. In fact, the article is totally unbalanced because it doesn't give any pushback to this one anecdotal experience. So I would definitely dismiss this as yet another fear-mongering moral medicine-like story, except as the article mentions, Europe is right now, as we speak, considering an outright ban on finasteride, and this type of story doesn't help that situation out one bit. However, stop the presses here, because one of my viewers linked to me Kyle's Reddit account, and normally that doesn't matter to me, but in this case it does, because it sheds a lot of light on where he's coming from in this BBC article. As you can see from this picture on the account, it's definitely the same guy. So first of all, he doesn't mention in the BBC article that his girlfriend left him, which could certainly contribute to his depression. As you can see in this Reddit post, he also says he dodged the vaccine. So it's evident this guy isn't just anti-finasteride, he's an anti-pharmaceutical conspiracy theorist as well. Basically, he's a male crunchy mom. He also says that his sexual side effects improved with Viagra, but then he says he went on topical finasteride. He doesn't mention any of that in the BBC article. He is also very anti-minoxidil, and in fact, according to his Reddit post, he was on minoxidil until just 5 months ago, but complained about how minoxidil was not working and causing dark circles under his eyes. But apparently, his anti-minoxidil posts were so egregious that they were removed by the moderators of the minoxidil side effects subreddit. He then switched to finasteride, and he said that he regretted not using finasteride sooner, but this was just 5 months ago, and according to the BBC article, it's been a year since he first ordered the drug online. So this guy is just a total liar who is just totally biased against any drug therapy for hair loss, and he deliberately lied about the details in his report to the BBC. The BBC should have better researched this, but I guess they were just so desperate for any story they could find about finasteride that they didn't even bother to fact check any of his claims. He also implies that he has had persistent side effects from finasteride for a year when he was still taking the drug 5 months ago. So Kyle is a malicious, repugnant liar, and this is dishonest reporting at its very worst. The timing of this report is especially bad too, because now we have to worry that this kind of reporting will influence the European regulators who are right now deciding whether or not to ban finasteride. Imagine how bad it would be if finasteride were banned in Europe because of a liar like Kyle. If a huge broadcasting company like the BBC didn't bother to fact check such a liar, then it's possible that European regulators won't either. I'm calling him out right now, but my channel only has minimal influence at best, so I think it's important that people who are watching this video spread the word and let people know what the BBC and anti-finasteride trolls are doing right now. Finasteride must not ever be banned, especially not over something like this, which is based on a pack of lies. Whatever happens here, let's hope that the European regulators who are deciding the fate of finasteride in Europe right now aren't too swayed by this gutter trash journalism by the BBC and by a liar like Kyle. We don't have to wait too long though, because we should be hearing from them in the next month in February. So let's go ahead and keep our fingers crossed, and as soon as a decision is made, whether it be the right choice or the wrong choice, I'll be ready to report it to all of you chooms, and we'll figure out what to do next. But until then, I have more content on the way, so thank you all so much for watching Hair Loss Witchers. I'll see you all soon. God bless.